Currently, there is quite a hunger for real-time strategies. A lot of cool-looking projects are on the horizon. However, most are made by solo devs or small teams, and therefore it's going to take a while for them to come out, while others are in early access and already show great potential, but some might still want to wait for a full release. As such, whenever someone asks for something new to play, I always recommend Five Nations, since it's quite a traditional RTS, though there are some characteristics that make it stand out. For starters, there are 5 factions instead of the usual 3 or 4, plus an additional one for the DLC. They all feel pretty varied. You've got the Federation, your jolly group of humans jack of all trades, the Cylon, the robotic faction focused on stealth, the Atrial, the religious greys who lift but prefer to poke from a distance, the Torun, proud warrior race that likes to go direct and personal.
The one predator they can't escape.
Please tell me it's not the child kind of predator. The Zogarn, the biological swarmy hive-minded space bugs. Experienced one, experienced all. And for the DLC, you have the Zahak, the quality over quantity faction. Another unique aspect is the setting. It's sci-fi, like many, but instead of focusing on ground battles, all fights take place in space, which means that you're going to witness a lot of celestial stuff. Gas clouds that slow down the ships, asteroid fields that only fighters class crafts and workers can pass through, allowing for some sneaky tactics, nebula storms that deal damage, and more. Also, the projectiles and missiles are physical, meaning that if you order to shoot at something, but there is an obstacle in the way, that obstacle is going to take damage instead, useful to cover the turrets. The story is nothing to write home about. There are 4 chapters plus a prelude that tell a run-of-the-mill sci-fi story, with the only noteworthy thing being that you change a race in the middle of those arcs, instead of focusing on one single race until the end. Other details include the fact that for most races resources aren't immediately allocated to the pool, and instead need to be transported by cargo ships to a command center, and how sometimes the autocast function overrides the direct order, leading to potentially some frustrating deaths. Considering this was made by a team in Hungary, on the whole, this is some top quality Slav junk, borrowing a term from the local citizen education. Those are the key features of Five Nations. It's neat. If I piqued your interest, you might want to check it out. I've chosen this game for an additional reason, to discuss with you what I think could be the general theory of real-time strategy games. Now, what do I mean by this? You see, I always try to learn more from this medium, understand more of it, how games are made, and to know the logical path why certain design decisions are taken. To achieve this, I strive to watch informative videos about game design. However, a genre that seems to receive no scrutiny are real-time strategies. This has prompted me to come up with this video. Full disclosure, I am not a game designer and I have no intention to ever produce a video game. I am literally just a random git on the internet trying to be smart. Still, I want to try. Either I say something right, or I make such infuriatingly wrong statements that someone actually competent will make a video on this and call me out. So, let's start from the basics. What are the fundamental factors that make a real-time strategy game such? To me, it boils down to 3 main components: the gathering and management of resources, the planning and construction of structures, and the training and control of troops on the field. Let's start from the first point. Why do we collect resources? Because it's one of the ways for a game designer to implicitly dictate the pace and speed of a match, and make you mentally calculate your possible moves depending on what you have at the start. You have to think long and short term, balancing economic expansion and military build-up, as going too much one way or the other can lead to your sudden defeat. This category can be subdivided on the spectrum of games with finite economies and ones with infinite economies. Games with finite economies are games where there is a prefixed amount of resources on the map, and once they run out, the players can do nothing else but engage each other, either until one side wins, or ending the match in a draw. Examples of finite resource strategies include Age of Empires 2, the StarCraft series, and Five Nations itself. Infinite economy games are the opposite. Sure, resource points could at a certain point get to a depleted state, yielding much less output, but they would still deliver a constant trickle that never runs out completely. Examples of infinite economy strategies include the First Dawn of War, Command and Conquer 3, Tiberium Wars, and Supreme Commander. I define it as a spectrum because certain games may allow collecting certain resources indefinitely, but others may be finite. Age of Mythology is a good example of this. Once you set up the farms and a decent trade route, you have infinite food and gold, but wood is finite, there is no way to regrow the trees. However, you can buy wood at the market, making it an infinite economy game, albeit indirectly. This subdivision is important because it fundamentally alters some tactics a player may employ. Think about it. Does turtling become more or less efficient when the resources on the map are infinite? Next, we have the base building, the second cornerstone of an RTS. From its inception in Dune 2, it represented another aspect of the strategizing mindset. Ground control to take away options from your enemy, therefore making them more predictable, and supply lines management, to satisfy another aspect of the strategic fantasy. It's also the second way to pace out a game, as certain units could have dependencies on another structure or technology. It is used a lot in single-player campaigns to disallow the creation of too advanced units or buildings, either to not overwhelm the player with choice, balancing, or to set up specific unit limitations to deliver a challenge. Speaking of which, we now have the main course, the thing everyone visualizes when talking about this genre, the production and commanding of units. From setting up control groups for better squad control, to sending them to their destiny. The micromanagement of them for maximum efficiency, colloquially defined the medium as micro, it's where the ultimate test of speed and attention for a player takes place. With the right clicks, it can make the biggest of armies fall to the hands of a smaller force. Stutter stepping, for example, is a micro technique employed by expert players to maximize the damage output in rhythmic bursts. Units must be defined with a clear point for their role on the field, and more importantly, be fun to play with. These three are the pillar of any RTS game. Without all three at the same time, you create a completely different experience. A game where you collect resources and command units, but don't build structures, is more akin to a real-time tactics. Something like Dawn of War 2, or the recent Starship Trooper Terran Command fit into this description. A strategy game where you collect resources and build structures, but don't train or command units to fight, is more akin to a management game like Banished. So, those are the basics, the tools at the disposal of the player. Now, let's move on to the other part, setting up a challenge for the player to overcome. The question is, how can we define in a general way what tasks the player may encounter? Let me give you a practical example. When Blizzard released their demo for Warcraft 3, besides the tutorial, it had 3 exclusive missions: Riders on the Storm, The Fires Down Below, and Countdown to Extinction. Why, do you think? Of all the maps they could have made, they decided to produce these 3 specifically. I think it's because they represent what 80% of missions, or maps, revolve around, employing one, but oftentimes multiple, of these 3 core objectives: elimination, escorting, and entrenching. The remaining 20% being a mix of either making a specific requirement of the 3 pillars I discussed earlier as a primary objective, gather an X amount to win, build certain structures, train certain units, that sort of thing, or something else entirely different that cannot be fit into either category. Example, the final mission in Frozen Throne is like a King of the Hill style map, no way to fit it in any previous category. Elimination is pretty straightforward. There is a target, or multiple targets, that need to be eliminated for the mission to succeed, used very often as the very first mission of a campaign to give the players something easy to do, while they familiarize with the controls of a game. Examples include, fittingly, the first mission of every campaign in Command and Conquer Generals, the first mission of every base StarCraft 2 campaign, and much more. However, a vanilla elimination mission is only good for that. Just attacking over and over without any other new element is not enough. As such, a lot of strategy games make sure to throw some kind of twist or restriction during playtime to make the experience feel more varied. Examples can be found in the 7th mission of Age of Mythology, where players have to fight against several squads of bandits, but are limited in their capabilities, since they never get a proper base. In the 6th mission of the Human campaign in Warcraft 3, the player has to eliminate 100 targets, however, they are in a race against AI, putting them under crunch time and force them to act fast. Many clever ones can be found in StarCraft 2. The Great Train Robbery mission. The targets aren't static, but moving ones that must be intercepted. Or Supernova, where the player must destroy a temple, but also move its base away, as the map is getting engulfed by the flames of a star going supernova. And as a last example, the 3rd Glam mission is one of pure catharsis. There are few enemies around, the player has access to a really strong unit type, and an entire city to set ablaze. Elimination is the most toyed and gimmicked with of the core objectives, as to make something memorable, you need to give it a twist, at least it feels like a skirmish against AI. On the other hand, escorting is about bringing a target to a designated location for the victory condition to be reached. Usually, this is employed without the usage of a base, colloquially defined as dungeon maps. There are a couple of examples for this category: the Underworld section in Age of Mythology, or the camel escorting with the Piece of Osiris. Several missions of this kind are present in both StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3, where the whole point is to bring someone somewhere else. The 7th mission of the 3rd act in Age of Empires 3 is a peculiar case, as it employs both escorting and elimination, with the first half being about escorting cannons from one end of the map to your base, to then use such weapons against the enemy stronghold. Lastly, entrenching is the least toyed kind of core objective, as the idea itself of entrenching yourself until victory feels so different from a standard skirmish. Fewer attempts are made to spice it up. This is something Blizzard used to employ a lot as the final epic mission for their campaigns. The endings for the Undead, Night Elves, Terran, and Protoss campaigns are all entrenchment missions, plus the slew of ones done during a playthrough. That's all, I think. And here's my final statement as a goodbye. If you want your handcrafted single player campaign to be truly memorable, make sure that your missions never feel like a string of skirmish maps loosely tied together. Thanks for watching, and farewell.